Good afternoon. Is this on? Excellent. Okay, great. So I'd like to begin today by posing a question, a rhetorical question. So what kind of words and associations come to mind when you think of refugees? Displaced, obviously. Forced to leave their homes. Vulnerable. Helpless, even. Victims of unfortunate circumstances, perhaps. These are, unfortunately, the kind of associations that shape popular discourse about refugees today. Now, to narrow our focus a bit, this discourse is very much so reflected in the way that refugees are represented in the classroom as well. And you can find a great deal of teaching materials on refugees on the internet. For instance, on the website of the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, they have a whole teacher's corner devoted to these types of materials, websites with Doctors Without Borders, Oxfam, etc. So to begin, I offer this poster, a UNHCR teaching resource, as an example. And so they have this whole line of Lego-themed teaching resources on refugees. So this poster is particularly interesting, entitled Spot the Refugee. And the idea behind this poster is that you can't spot the refugee because a refugee can be anybody. And the text under here, I don't think you can see it, but it's written next to it. It says, you see, refugees are just like anyone else, just like you and me, except for one thing. Everything they had is left behind. Home, possessions, family, all gone. They have nothing. And nothing is all they'll ever have unless we all extend a helping hand. This is an interesting portrayal, yes? This kind of material perpetuates this victim narrative. We are to infer from this message that we, as the potential donors, have the power in our hands to end this victimhood status, right? If we only just do something. So while this kind of message may function very well in garnering funds, raising money, it gives us this very static and unidimensional picture of what a refugee is, and it certainly doesn't tell the whole story of the displacement experience. And one more teaching resource. Now this gives us quite a different picture of what a refugee is, and it encompasses quite a bit more. So here we see refugees do not have only nothing. They bring with them instead a wealth of expertise, experiences, knowledge, that the host country really could stand to benefit from. I know my country, the United States, benefited immensely from offering refuge to Einstein. So this is but a small example of the existing material out there on refugees. But I think, especially from the first poster, it's clear that something is really lacking, right? And what is lacking, in my opinion, is what I've taken to call the human dimension, or sort of the personal narratives of refugees, and this has immense value. The problem I see with these kind of portrayals, especially the first one, is that there's just very little room for these individual representations. So where are the refugee voices? Where is their humanity, their agency, their resilience? None of this comes through in these kind of portrayals, right? All of this stuff is subsumed to this broader narrative of loss, deprivation, of victimhood. For me, there is thus a dire need for a new way of talking about refugees that brings in this human dimension, this emphasis on individual narratives. So I took a two-pronged approach to addressing this issue. First, by creating and implementing participatory video workshops with urban refugees in Amman, Jordan, and then taking the video footage gleaned from these workshops as the basis for a video-based teaching unit on refugees designed for American high school students. So for the first prong of this approach, we took participatory video as our starting point. And participatory video is this kind of relatively new, very effusive concept that basically involves engaging a community in the process of creating their own video. And the idea behind this concept is that creating a video is easy and accessible, and it provides a very unique medium for engaging with issues, for airing discontents, or simply just being creative and allowing community members to tell their stories. So in May of 2013, I traveled to Amman, Jordan, where I partnered with 2 NGOs and implemented 5 different participatory video workshops. So the some 60 participants in these workshops, they were from Sudan, from Somalia, from Iraq, from Syria, from Palestine. And they were all living in Amman, and their ages ranged from 11 to in their mid-60s. And so basically in these workshops, participants were trained in the basics of using these small handheld cameras and just kind of the basics of storytelling. And they were given these broad instructions. What should Americans know about your life? And then we loaned them the cameras for a period of 1 week, and I'll show you some of the results in a bit. And so here are some more of the workshop participants. So after returning to the US, for the second stage of the project, I began to organize the some 75 hours of footage that we'd gotten from these workshops into this video-based teaching unit. And for me, this stage of the project was absolutely transformative. As I delved into the editing process, it was fascinating to see what participants had chosen to talk about, what they had chosen to show. People rapped, people sang songs, people recited poetry. People talked a lot about food. Actually, this was probably the pervasive theme. People asked probing questions. They explained what it was like to be a foreigner in an unfamiliar place. They talked about their past. They talked about their present conditions. They talked about their hopes for the future. And they captured this whole spectrum of emotion and sentiment: happiness, loneliness, pride, excitement, dejection, most importantly, hope. And so it was really not until several months after I got back from Jordan, of staring into this editing software in a computer lab thousands of miles away, that I even began to appreciate the sheer depth of what the workshop participants had captured. So I've talked for far too long, and I think it's time that the workshop participants speak for themselves. So what I'm going to show you is a small excerpt of a longer video about the project. And it's just a series of rapid, kind of choppy, rough cuts. But I just want to give you an idea of just sort of the myriad ways that people responded to this question or this prompt: what should Americans know about your lives?
اللاجئين العراقيين الشباب يحبون أن يلعبون في هذه الساحة كرة القدم ويمارسون هواياتهم. تعالوا معنا حتى نشوف كيف أدائهم. مرحبا، أنا اسمي بريد. سالم. سلام. يزن. راح نشوفكم المعدة.
ما عاش اللي يدلك يا عراق الخير، ولا عاش رسم لك الوجن دمعة. عراق انت، عراق مشرف التاريخ، وديار الخير بتكل العالم مشرعة.
صومالي توسوس كتير سداي هدبكينا تقدرني تاجر وليجيني.
كلام.
I'm Sudanese from Darfur. When I want to talk about Amman, it is difficult to find complete words to describe it. Amman is my second country. So, really, Amman is amazing.
In the end, when I come in Jordan, I am not married. But now, I am married. And I have daughter girl. I love my family. And I hope my life change. Hi guys, how are you?
Thank you. And just, sorry, one more brief as an aside. So the man speaking at the end about getting married in Jordan, and he was pictured with his family. So I just learned yesterday that he was resettled to the United States. And he's a dear friend of mine from when I was living in Jordan. So he was resettled to the United States. Not only that, he was resettled to my hometown of Mobile, Alabama. So, which made me very happy. So as we speak right now, my parents are speaking with him on the phone. And so I'm really excited that we can bring him into this community. And I'm just like totally floored by the way sort of, life comes full circle in this kind of way. So just very briefly to conclude, all the videos and lesson plans that I was talking about are available on this website here. It's the faculty blog of my incredible supervising professor at Georgetown University, Rochelle Davis. And so given just the wealth of expertise and knowledge and just like really inspiring energy in this room today, I would be so eager and responsive to any kind of feedback about how to expand this project. Perhaps conducting similar workshops in different settings, like a camp setting, or maybe even using existing material as for asylum advocacy tools, for instance. So I just really hope in some small way that this model of using participatory video as a conduit for refugee voices reaching a broader audience will have an impact on future discussions about refugees, kind of keeping this human dimension in focus. Thank you.